Chapter 7, Section 2, we're looking at a specific shape this time. We're going to talk about parallelograms. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral, and so it has a lot of the properties of a quadrilateral, but some specific ones to parallelograms itself. So let's take a look at a parallelogram. And I'm going to label this specific one in a clockwise motion. And so I'm going to go down, and instead of marking this up, I'm going to list some specific things that are true. And so in a parallelogram, the opposite sides are both parallel and congruent. Okay, so AB is congruent to DC, and AD is congruent to BC. Okay, so opposite sides are both congruent and parallel. So in the next one, I'm going to have AB is parallel to DC, and AD is parallel to BC. So different kinds of markings you'll see. Obviously the congruent marks to show that they're parallel, the little triangles will be on there. And that should take care of it. And so now let's look at the angles. In a parallelogram, the opposite angles are congruent. So angle A is congruent to angle C, which means that angle B is congruent to angle D. So we now have opposite sides parallel and congruent, and we have opposite angles that are congruent. Now let's look at the consecutive angles. The consecutive angles are going to be A and D, D and C, C and B, and B and A. Okay. And the consecutive angles in a parallelogram are supplementary. So let's list these. There's going to be 4 different ones. So angle A plus angle D is 180 degrees. Angle B plus angle C is 180 degrees. Now we'll look at the ones that are directly across from each other because they are also consecutive. So that makes angle A plus angle B 180 degrees. And finally, angle C plus angle D is 180 degrees. So we have some side relationships, we have some angle relationships, and then we're going to finish it off with the diagonal relationships. And so I'm going to draw those in. We've got DB and AC. And so the diagonal relationships are these. I'm going to put an intersection point of E right there. The diagonals bisect each other. Which simply means this. AE is congruent to EC, and DE is congruent to EB. Okay, so all kinds of properties on this, and as we go through and do some more some more shapes, you'll find that a lot of the quadrilaterals have very similar properties, but each a little bit unique. And so let's take a look at a problem. What we might see is something like this. It looks as though, I'm trying to pick some off of the out of the lesson. Let's take a look at this one. So we're going to check out question number 2. I say question number 2. Example number 2, under monitoring progress. Question number 2 on page 333. What we're going to try to find is we're going to try to find x and y. So let's look at x first. It deals with the angles. We're looking at a parallelogram here because we have opposite sides of parallel. Opposite sides are parallel. That's what the two little triangles mean for the top and bottom sides. And then the single triangles on the sides. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but so we have an opposite angle. 2x is opposite from 50. So we know that 2x plus 50, since those are opposite angles, they have to be congruent. And so I don't want to do 2x plus 50. Sorry about that. I want to do 2x equals 50. And so I divide both sides by 2. So that tells me that x equals 25. And so we also know that opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. So we're going to have y plus 3 equals 18. I subtract 3 from both sides. That gives me a final answer of y equals 15. So I'll put that over here. So x is 25, y is 15. And that brings Chapter 7, Section 2, Parallelograms, to a conclusion.